5 homestead income mistakes to avoid. That's what we will be discussing on the podcast today. Jason from Plans and Provisions podcast is joining me today to discuss this topic of generating diverse income streams, and this is all in preparation for the workshop I have coming up. It's totally free, so listen to the whole episode and you'll be able to find out the details on that. Doors open today. This is February 17th that this podcast is being aired, so doors open to the free workshop Facebook group today. There's a link in the show notes. This is the Homesteading for Beginners podcast, and I'm Mona Weathers, your homesteading mentor and coach. If you desire to establish a solid foundation for your homesteading journey, then you are in the right place. I'm here to show you how, in a way that is healthy for you, your family, and your community. I'll share stories from the past 20 years of my own journey and offer you actionable steps you can take to start and maintain a healthy homestead. So as homesteaders and homestead dreamers, we have become aware that we need to take some control of our food supply. This is what we all have in common. We no longer want to be just dependent on the grocery stores to provide food for us. So I think the idea of multiple income streams really resonates with most people because it sounds wise to have multiple streams of income for security and financial freedom. But what makes homesteaders different from the rest of the world is that we understand that we need to be prepared in multiple ways. This is why I've been teaching the 3 homestead income streams, and those are on-homestead, off-homestead, and online income. These diverse income streams allow us to be prepared for when we need to shift with the current events. We all understand that we don't know what the future holds, and we need to be prepared for different scenarios. There will be times we may need to lean into one income stream more heavily than the other. This type of thought process also goes just beyond money, making money. It also being a part of your local community is really important. Being someone that other people can count on is really important. And even with your products and services. So I believe this is more of a holistic way to think about income. So today I'm going to have a discussion with my friend Jason about 5 homestead income mistakes to avoid. Some of these mistakes my husband and I have made, and I really want to see others not make the same mistakes. Jason and I met when he reached out to me on Instagram to be on his podcast called the Plans and Provisions podcast. And then ever since then, we've just been podcasting buddies. And so I want to welcome him here to talk about this topic of homestead income with me today. Jason, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks, Mona. I'm glad to be here. I think it's an important topic, and it's something that, I think it's for our family, it's probably the number one topic that we've been dealing with so far in our second year of homesteading. So I'm excited.
Yeah. It is a very, it's a topic that I think tugs at a lot of people's heartstrings because just in general, everyone's just kind of either has a positive or negative view of money. And I just think, if we talk about it and have a plan, then it won't be, it'll be smoother for everyone. If you talk about it, especially before you start your homesteading journey to begin with, if you just, you have this plan. So I was on episode 30 of your podcast. Thank you for letting me be on your podcast. And since I would like, since my listeners may not know you, I would like you to talk about yourself and where you're from and a little bit about yourself, your family, and your journey, your homesteading journey.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, it's kind of an interesting story. Most recently, my family and I have been here in southern Missouri, right smack dab in the middle of the Ozarks. And we've been here, we're on our second year, so about 14 months on this property. I'm from Florida originally. My wife is from Maui, Hawaii. We met out there when I was farming coffee, living a very interesting life. And yeah, we just kind of ended up traveling around a little bit, spent a lot of time in Oregon, in Arizona. We worked and lived on some farms in Oregon primarily. And then we ended up having our first kid. Reality started setting in. So we moved to the big city of Phoenix where my family was, and just kind of got plugged into the suburban lifestyle for about 6 years. And that was prior to moving here. So, our journey now is kind of rediscovering some of those kind of homesteading practices and lifestyles that we had learned prior to kind of getting sucked into the suburban abyss. And yeah, so that's where we are now, just getting into our second year, and we're enjoying it so far.
That's great. I didn't realize she was from Hawaii. I just thought you guys lived in Hawaii because I know part of your story, and I didn't realize she was from Hawaii. Have I ever told you I was born in Hawaii on
That's
Oahu?
definitely no, that's never
Yeah.
come up. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, my parents just decided one day, I'm sure it was more involved of a decision than that, but to move to Hawaii. And I was born there and they lived there for a few years. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
originally from,
That's cool.
yeah.
I definitely didn't know that. Yeah, my wife's grandfather was a colonel in the army, and
Mm,
so her mom was raised traveling from place to place to place. And
mm,
I think that they landed in Hawaii when her mom was 16, and she
okay.
decided that she's never leaving. She has left now in the last couple of years, but she was there
Mm.
for goodness, she was there for about 50 years, 40, 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And so my wife was born and raised out there, and I met her. Um, and yeah, I was excited. I loved Hawaii. I spent a lot of time on Maui, and going back and
Mhm.
forth, and finally met the local girl. It's like, I want to meet a local girl and make this my home. Met the local girl, and she says, well, if you're going to stay with me, we're leaving. So ended up heading to Oregon, where I had some connections, and we had a great experience there. But yeah, that's funny. Small world.
Yeah, that's funny. That's really cool. I love that story. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 5 mistakes, the homestead income mistakes to avoid. And Jason, feel free to, chime in whenever you feel like this topic it resonates with you. We're just going to just have a discussion. This is not an interview. This is the fourth uh, uh, e- episode of my 4-part series on homestead income. There's a chance there may be a couple more after this, uh, but I really wanted to share this topic with you all because of a workshop I have coming up on February 22nd. So if you're listening this in real time, that is in a few days, and if you're listening this in on Friday, the February 17th, the doors to the Facebook group where the workshop will be held is actually open right now. So just head to the link in the show notes and you'll be able to get in there and learn about what I'm going to be talking about later. I'll get more into that now. But the 5 homestead income mistakes to avoid, this is what I came up with based on experience, based on some of our failures. So I have number 1 is failing to have an income plan. And this is just kind of like just believing things will improve and get better if you work really hard. I mean, hard work is very important, but if you don't have a plan, then it can actually cause you to just work really hard for nothing. Would
Yeah,
you
work
agree?
smarter, not harder, right? I mean, that's
Right.
that's for sure. Yeah, and having a plan was something that we we didn't really have. We've always said we want to have multiple income streams because it
Mhm.
just, I mean, even before we really identified as homesteaders, um, that was something that was really important. But we got here, and I was talking to you a little bit before. I'm working from home a little bit, and I've tried a few different things there. That's kind of new to me, so it's been a discovery process. And but we bought our home because it's an hour from Branson, an hour from Springfield, so larger markets with jobs and things like that. So I've been able to go into town and take the long commute and things like that. But I think it's one of the biggest. It's certainly for us in the first year of being out here. It's been the biggest challenge, and not having a clear plan before we did it. It's made it harder than it probably needed to be, for sure.
Well, I think most people do it this way. I mean, maybe they have an idea of what they want, and what kind of income streams they want to generate through on the homestead or because of the homestead. But I'm talking about like a real plan that you write down and you say, this is what we're going to do the first year. This is what we're going to do the second year. And just really evaluating that. I know my husband and I didn't do it this way either, but this is why I'm sharing this, because we didn't do it this way either. And we were the kind of homesteader that, and it was all me. It was 100% me. I own up to this, that I would get the animal before the enclosure, before we had a place to put it. Almost every single time, that is what happened. And that's not a good plan, and that can also cost you a lot of money, because you're not doing it in the right order. So that's part of the planning as well.
Yeah, and I think it's been coming up a lot on my podcast lately, just talking to different folks who've been doing it for quite a while and had success in different elements. But it's just being intentional, whether it's with an income plan, which is a big part of it. But just taking steps, and not, like you said, bringing the animal home before you have the enclosure. I'm sure you got the enclosure pretty quickly, but it may not have been the ideal solution for the long term, and therefore you probably had to rebuild some enclosures and do some replacements. And so I think it all kind of rings true, just that question of intentionality and putting one foot in front. I mean, it's fundamental stuff, but that's why we have to be reminded of it so often, because it's so easy to overlook these things and get kind of starry-eyed watching YouTube videos and Instagram, and that's how I want everything. And it's a great way to burn yourself out and get yourself in debt. So we've survived our first year without a real plan. And now, trying a lot of different things, I feel like it's all coming together for us, at least for the off-farm income. The on-farm kind of homestead production aspect is something that we have a much longer term vision for, because it's not something we never really thought, hey, we've thought about, hey, we can farm and we can make money, and I don't think that's really where we want to be. We just want to become as self-sufficient as possible. And if we get a surplus, great. But yeah.
Well, even that, your on-homestead income can be, as well as, like, you don't have to buy groceries if you're growing your groceries, so it is an income source in that respect. Like, you because of what you're doing on your farm means that you don't have to spend that in the grocery store. So, but yeah, I think, a lot of people don't have like a plan right away, and it's just the way it is. But this isn't a mistake I would avoid if I was, starting over again. If I'm, coaching anyone new, just have some sort of plan in place before you get started, or if you're already started, just, make 2023 the year that you have an income plan of some sort. And especially when we have things like feed prices increasing suddenly. This is happening to me right now with hay.
Yeah.
And you don't know when those things are going to happen. So having some sort of plan for those scenarios. Okay, so number 2 is trying to sell a product no one really wants. So this is talking about like market research and validating your product and stuff like that. This happens to a lot of people, I think, because we think it's like it's a good idea. Like it sounds like a good idea. I mean, you might ask like your mom or your sister, like, does that sound like a good idea? And then it turns out it was only a good idea to them.
Yeah.
Or everybody says it's a good idea and it's not actually something they would buy. They just think it's a good idea for you, like, or something like that. So and this can be across, this can be products you create. I did this with my tea business, though it was successful in a sense, but I didn't really do market research. I had a tea business. This was my on-homestead income I had in California, where I had a food cottage license and I created blends of teas that I purchased bulk and made my own blends. And it was really, really, it was fun. I actually made it very personal. I named it after both my grandmothers. It was called Virginia Ann Teas. I think there's still a Facebook group or a Facebook page on that, but I haven't actually sold anything for many years. But I didn't actually go out and go, hey, do my market research and say, hey, how much tea would you buy if I created this? Or, try to find the people that I could sell this to. And I think this especially happens when you go into the online income stream, because it's like, well, somebody out there must love my product. And that could be true. But if you don't do your market research and validate what your idea, you're just going to be working really, really hard and then realizing, man, I should have maybe done something different. you know. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I mean, yeah, I think again, we're kind of at the earlier stages of developing some
Mhm.
kind of systems here, and some of the ideas that we've had. So we love chickens. I mean, everybody loves chickens, right? And it's
Mhm.
the homestead kind of gateway animal, and it certainly was for us, and that was where we started before we ever really, became quote unquote homesteaders. And if we were living in a certain area, we could probably sell eggs for a premium. Where we
Mhm.
live, everybody's got chickens, and
Mm.
I mean, I see chicken eggs on Craigslist for $2 a dozen. I'm like, what are you
Mm.
doing? But I mean, how can you even? But so for
Yeah.
us, we've thought about, well, how can we raise chickens and not only have them pay for their own feed and upkeep, because chickens can be expensive. They
Mhm.
definitely are not an easy animal to kind of close the loop on.
Mhm.
So we started thinking about, okay, well, where
Yeah.
we live, there's a lot of homesteaders. Selling just eggs for consumption is probably not going to do it for us. So we started thinking about breeding, and so we've kind of come up with a game plan for this year, where I'm currently working on building a few tractors. We've got some specific breeds that we really like, and our goal is to start breeding. For example, we really love the Brahma breed. We have the white
Mhm.
Brahmas.
Mhm.
I think that there's plenty of good dual purpose birds out there, but
Mhm.
we're kind of getting behind this particular breed as a really good homestead dual purpose bird. They
Mhm.
grow large bodies pretty quickly. They're great layers. They're all around wonderful birds. So we're looking at being able to sell. Now we can sell hatching eggs to those. We can
Mhm.
sell chicks. We can sell pullets. Not to mention we can raise our own for meat and eggs as well. So I think it might be easier to just sell eggs,
Mhm. Yeah.
but the
Mhm.
market's not here, and
Right.
so if we're talking a local thing, I mean, it depends on where you are. If you're just outside of a city of 2 million, where there's lots of kind of urban customers who, you throw one green egg in the container and sell them for $8 because it's a heritage breed egg. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
thing, in some places, and some people will pay for it. But so that's something
Yep.
that we've kind of, one thing that we've had to kind of consider. And yeah, it takes more work. It's going to be more effort. Um, but it's something we're excited about.
Mhm. Yeah, and those are those are kind of like the thinking outside the box as far as the chickens go. A lot of people just go straight for the eggs, and like you said, if you tried to sell to your neighbors, it wouldn't be worth it because everybody else has them. That drives me crazy when people sell their eggs for $2 a dozen. That's like, oh, you're killing everybody around you who has eggs.
Yeah.
Like raise that price. But
Right.
yeah. But yeah, so yeah, market research is just a good way to like basically it would be just like going out and making sure that there is a a customer for your product. So, in that case, you would go out and see if there's, anybody who would buy your uh, Brahma chicks, or the fertilized eggs. And there seems to be a lot of that right now, and a lot of people don't even really care what breed. We all want the pretty eggs, but a lot of times it doesn't matter what breed it is as long as they get a variation in color of eggs is
Hmm.
what I'm finding out.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, to the point of market research, I mean, around here, Craigslist is kind of king for the farm and garden community. And that's
Mhm.
where, most of the private party kind of, one person to another livestock trading and selling is going. And so I've been able to kind of use that to gauge what what the chicken market is. And we've
Mhm.
actually been able to sell some roosters at fairly good prices. And I mean, we also raise black Australorps, which we're pretty fond of. They don't
Mhm.
really, to me, they're not the greatest dual purpose, but they're really great layers. They
Mhm.
just don't get nearly as big as these Brahmas. But uh, we sold a pair of Australorp cockerels. They were like 4 months old, and I forget what we charged, but I thought it was high. And a woman drove an hour and a half one way to buy them. So
Mm.
that told me, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
This is a good breed.
Mhm.
And we've been able to sell a bird here, bird there, and had no trouble. So it tells me, okay, even before kind of the chicken egg craze of that we're
Mhm.
kind of going through right now, which I think is changing the market and interest, it told us that yeah, I think this is a good direction to go in, and we probably won't find ourselves wasting our time.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. This is a good time to at least test that out and see how it goes. But yeah. Okay, so let's move on to number 3. And number 3 is like it's kind of related to the last number 2, but if you build it, they will come. So a lot of times people will create a product or so if you've seen the movie, you know what movie I'm referring to, right? What's the movie called?
Of course, yeah.
What's the
Field
movie?
of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
I always think about that when I think about, making products. It's like people think that if they build it, then everybody's going to come and buy it. And that has to do with also like market research and validating your product, but also lack of marketing. So it's like
Mm,
you need to move from this phase of you have a good product, you have you validate it, people will buy it, to being able to market it. And especially in the online phase, I think people tend to get really lazy. I don't know if it's lazy. Maybe it's not lazy. Maybe that's a harsh word. Maybe it's just unaware that it takes a lot of effort to market online because people are constantly being, bombarded with ads basically, and it takes a lot more views of your product for to register that it's for sale or that you even sell it or whatever it is. Like it takes a lot more eyes on your product for people to, you know, be interested to get to the point that they're interested in purchasing. So that is like I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls I actually for the online space is that there has to be a long enough runway. There has to be enough time and the language that you're speaking is communicating correctly on what it is you're trying to sell. And a lot of times people will say, "Well, I'm selling this product." But what you need to sell is what this product does, like how this product's going to change their life, how this product's going to take them from not having what they want to having what they want. And
right.
those are just some of those marketing things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's I've seen this. I've seen this a lot, just even before I've even thought about starting my own business. Really, you see the couple that always dreamed of having a coffee shop, and they rent the space and they paint the walls and they decorate and they get the coffee together. They have it all, and then 6 months later they close because, well, people weren't
Mhm.
really showing up. It wasn't really a thing, and they
Mhm.
didn't. I think it goes back to kind of unrealistic expectations.
Mhm.
And like you said, I mean, I think I've heard somewhere it takes, and this number may be wrong, but it takes people, I don't know, I think 7 times to
Mhm.
see your product before they'll even consider it even registers that it's something that they could buy,
Yeah.
and for, what I can relate is with my podcast,
Mhm.
marketing is not my strong suit. We've talked about it. It's definitely
Mhm.
something that you're pretty good at, and there are people out there that are. And social media seems to be kind of one of the main kind of channels
Mhm.
for that. And I've just never really been a big social media guy. But starting my podcast, I realized I'm not really going to invest a lot of time or effort into social media. It's just not
Mhm.
something um, that interests me. Now I am there and
Mhm.
I give my efforts here and there, but I also realized that it was going to take time to grow
Mhm.
my show. It wasn't something that um, once I launched my first 3 episodes, well, they're not, well, I'm not hitting 1,000 downloads, and it's not,
Mhm.
I'm not getting emails and offers for sponsorships and all these things. I think it goes into realistic expectations. So when you were mentioning,
Mhm.
people maybe are lazy, I think they just don't really understand what it is they're getting into. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really good point you're making, that, whether it be on farm things or it's online income, which I think is pretty
Mhm.
approachable for a lot of people. You really you have to have a long vision, but you also have to know kind of what that's going to look like over time, and not just think, hey, in 6 months, if I'm not getting the results, I'm going to walk away from it. You have to stay
Mhm.
committed to it. And so, yeah, I think it's a good point.
Yeah. And I really feel bad about saying lazy. I shouldn't have said lazy because that's like I don't mean anybody's lazy. I just mean like just like lack of understanding what the effort that it takes to market something. And it's continuous. That's the thing also about it. Like if you want to sell or promote something, it will be you can take off seasons, you can have times where you're taking off, but it really is a continuous thing. And it's like, okay, so a parenting tip for you. How many times are you going to have to tell your kids that thing that you tell them? A million.
Right.
like
Yep.
like it just give into the fact that the thing that you have to tell your kids is going to could possibly be like 100 times. Once I realized that as a parent, I was like, I let go of that completely. I'm like, I'm just gonna have to repeat myself again. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna have, instead of saying,
Yep.
why do I have to repeat myself so many times? I just said, well, I just have to. That's just, um, but that's kind of
That's a
like,
that's a good one. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with this. Yeah. Go ahead.
Our 8-year-old is we're seeing a lot of really great developments, but that's been through repetition. And I think that
Mhm.
it's a good metaphor for marketing and growing a business. I think it is, because you're really just repeating the same message over and over again, maybe different
Mhm.
different nuances, different angles, but you're trying to get the same thing across, and you hope to eventually get the result that you're looking for, which is, in the case of parenting, a decent human being that's helpful and
Yeah.
all that. But in the case of a business, obviously people that are engaged and enjoying being a part of what you're doing. So yeah, I like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and as far as the touch points for people, you said 7. I think they're saying it's more like 20 to 30 times
Yeah.
now because of the way social media is. And there are things you can do also that don't have to feel like, as far as social media, that's just a an avenue because it's free. Social media is free. But there are other ways you can make it to where it doesn't feel like it's sucking the life out of you. So, like marketing, I use social media for marketing primarily, but I've started going into other areas as well. and the podcast, we both are podcasters, so we have like the foundational content, and I think that is the most important part, is having this foundation of content that is not created on social media. And I can get into that another time, but I just wanted to like touch on that. And you're doing great with your podcast, by the way. And like you said, you know, the expectation, like it's just going to take you maybe a little longer, because you're not using these marketing things, but you'll get discovered, and it'll, you know, and actually with podcasting, they always tell you the best place to grow your podcast is on other podcasts. So if you just do that, you'll be successful.
Yeah, that's
uh,
certainly been my the best driver so far,
yeah.
and relationships with other podcasters such as yourself, and
Hmm.
that's just been a really great part of the process. And so I think that can relate to probably just about anything you're trying to do, whether it's, you know, raising chickens or pigs, or starting some type of an online business, or
Hmm.
you know, I think that there's this sense of competition or fear of kind of competitive elements, but I think that most people generally want to work together and help each other out.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that when people come together, and that's why there's trade associations and
Hmm.
breed associations and all these different things where people are
Hmm.
coming together to support growing their industry, their market. And
Hmm.
so I think it's something that, if for those that are looking to get into business of any kind, I mean, collaboration
Hmm.
is extremely valuable, and it's proven enjoyable and helpful for me so far in my content creation. So
Yeah, that's very true. I think community, you know, connections, those are all things that we need to do, as if, you know, we're growing a business, growing an income, that is just the best way to expand, in my opinion. So, okay, so let's get through 4 and 5. So, trading time for money with all income streams. So, time for money is like you create a product, takes you a certain amount of time, and then you sell that product, there's your money. So, that, you know, it's very hard to scale something like that. That stuff that we will do on homestead income and off homestead income, you know, like that happens a lot. And that's a good income source. There's a lot of reasons that's a good source of income, because you're being creative. You have, you know, you can do something that you love to do. So if you're creating something or raising an animal or something like that, like there's good reasons other than that it's an income source that we need to be diverse. It's not just income. It's how we feel as people. Are we contributing, you know, with something that we love? Um, so, you know, but trading time for money is hard. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, and so that's just, you know, if you have a plan to scale, you want to kind of move over to the online income source, because digital products, for instance, if you're creating your own digital product, and selling your own digital product, then digital products can be sold, one item can be sold to many people all over the world, all over the globe. So, you know, if you have validated your product and you've done your market research and you've got a good marketing plan for that product and it's scalable, it can go really, really far. So that's what I'm most passionate right now about, teaching people, because although I think those other income sources are very important for other reasons, they're not scalable. And the financial comfort that I talk about in a couple of my other episodes is, you know, that's something that you define what that means to you. But it's harder to gain that if you're just constantly trading time for money.
yeah, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to participating in your workshop coming up,
Hmm.
because it does take, I think I could speak from my personal perspective. It's intimidating, and maybe I am a little lazy, but it seems like a heck of a lot of work to get that going. But once you get that going, like you said, it's scalable. It's that magical word passive income that everybody's talking about these days. And so I think it's something that's easily overlooked. And there's probably people out there that think, well, I don't have anything to contribute. I, I don't have the capacity to produce something like this. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people really do, and they'd be surprised. Now, is that something that during the workshop you'll kind of be digging into and helping people figure out? Because I personally, I love podcasting. I started podcasting to help people to be able to bring some of the things I've learned about food health, food preparedness, things like that. And as I learn about homesteading and sustainability, looking forward to kind of sharing that. But I don't exactly know exactly
Mhm.
where I'd be going if I were to be able to create something that could actually generate a bit of revenue this year. I mean, is that something that
Mhm.
you'll be helping people with?
Yeah, that's exactly what the workshop's about, is just trying to help people discover a product they could sell. And most people think that they don't have something that they could sell, but that's what we'll be doing in the workshop. And there's a chance that you go through the workshop and you're like, I still don't have anything to sell. But the hope is it's a free workshop. The hope is that you will find something that is a legitimate product that somebody will want, and there will be, homework things, homework assignments and stuff, so that you can actually work on it and see results right away. So yeah, and I kind of mentioned number 5 with number 4. So the number 5 is failing to have an online income stream. um, so we talked about the one to many, and that's very scalable income. So that's a mistake to avoid, because right now, as we see it, the internet is fully alive and available to us, and we are able to reach people across the world. I know people who listen to this podcast that are in New Zealand and Australia and all different parts of the world. And the only way we're doing that is because this is an online platform. And so I don't want you to miss this opportunity, even if in the future, I'm not saying anything's going to happen, but as homesteaders, we kind of have that feeling like, well, things could turn out, where we don't have that income source. But for right now, it's a very strong and live and available thing. So, and to speak to what you said about not knowing uh, if you wait, what did you say? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well,
Review.
I think you just I know from my experience, I have maybe an idea of what I might like to help people with. Some people may not even feel like they have
Mhm,
anything to contribute. I feel like I do, but it really needs to be kind of narrowed down. And I think
mhm,
that it sounds like this is a good workshop for people who maybe they just like the idea of being able to develop passive online income, but they
mhm.
really don't have any ideas. And it sounds like you'll be kind of helping people to brainstorm and do some
Right.
exercises to find something. Because I think that even if I mean, maybe it's not going to pay all your bills and allow you to
Mhm.
sit, and eat shrimp and drink margaritas on the beach or whatever, but like, maybe it'll pay your property taxes, or maybe
Right.
it'll, be a part of the bigger picture, which is what we're talking about with those multiple
Mhm.
revenue streams.
The big part of this is that it has the potential, right? Like, that we all know that it has the potential to grow. But the big part of this is that we're not just thinking, and this is what I'll talk about in the workshop, is that we're not just thinking about one product. We're going to take, we're going to figure out the customer journey that you want your customer to be on. So we're going to like review a timeline, basically, or create a timeline of where you want your customer, where they're starting and where you want them to end. And you can actually create multiple streams within that stream of income. So you take multiple products within that. And if whether you choose to do it or not, that's up to you. Like, you could just want to make So let me give you examples of things that what I'm talking about with digital products, since I didn't actually do that. The digital products would be something like a ebook, workbook, which is more like a paid lead magnet, a paid freebie is what I say, because it's not, you don't make a whole lot on your lead on a workbook or an ebook that's like $10. And then there might be like a mini course that you might want to teach somebody something. And then you might want to do, have some coaching in there or something like that. You want to create this journey for your ideal customer that you can fill in those gaps that they need. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. It sounds like a really, I hope it doesn't sound like it's a lot. It's going to be a packed 2 weeks, but I want to take you through this process so that you understand what it takes to create a digital product, and then you can decide from there whether that's something you want to continue on with.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I kind of need I've got so many different things moving with the homestead, the podcast, jobs, family, all these things. It's I just like that I can kind of get led and pulled through the process, and what I hear there is you want to create a journey, but you also you don't exactly know what people need and where they're at in the journey that you are kind of leading them on. And so different products, it sounds like, might be, more suitable for different people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And, there's a lot to actually creating the product, but what we're going to go over is just choosing the product that with the time that you have available to you. So in this, when you were saying earlier, you don't know what it is that you would create, but that's what we're kind of going to go over is like, do you have time for this type of product? Is this what your ideal customer needs from you right now? If it is, do you have time to create it, and that sort of thing? So yeah. So
very cool.
yeah. So in the workshop, I'll be teaching like 3 stages of discovery for choosing your digital product to create and sell. And what it is, I want you to have a plan. Basically, we talked about a plan, a product people want, and for you to know how to find those customers, so that you can create that digital product and sell to people over and over again. So that is the goal. Right. So this would be the beginning stages of that. That is it for today. I think we're almost at 45 minutes. So this is the longest podcast episode I've done. So we should probably end it right there.
That's funny. Mine are sometimes they could go well over an hour. So I'm rubbing off on you a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, and yours are you're doing some more solos, and they're getting shorter. So
I just did. I think it was like 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, this feels weird, but yeah, it's been going good. So
yeah. So I thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. This was a great conversation. And so if you want to join the workshop, there will be a link in the show notes, and we'd love to see you there. Jason will be there. A lot of other friends of mine will be there as well. So can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Mona.